massive Lake Simcoe watershed area. And these things protect, in particular, natural heritage features, fish and migratory bird habitats, and wetlands. The bypass route cuts through greenbelt lands near the mouth of the Holland River. The boundaries set for the new highway will impact wetlands and protected farmlands, placing migratory birds and aquatic life at risk and contributing to an increase in carbon emissions. Speaking of carbon emissions, the 97 assessment didn't consider an increase in public transit, such as the GO line, or the improvement of existing roads as a better alternative. There may be an impact on Bradford itself. Town bypasses tend to hurt local businesses, and the principle of induced travel demand will bring more congestion, a sort of if you build it, they will come. You can see this in Toronto whenever a major road improvement quickly fills up. The true beneficiaries will likely be commercial traffic, not commuters. We believe the provincial government should step back and take a completely new and full environmental assessment. Preliminary designs must adhere to the new and existing provincial and federal legislation, including the Endangered Species Act, the Greenbelt Plan, the Heritage Act, the Fisheries Act, and other protections. The Innisfil District Association strongly disagrees with tonight's motion of support for the bypass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Appreciate you being here. And again, if you want to stay with us with your mic and video off, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can join us on the live stream to listen to the rest of the debate.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that is our open forum for this evening. And next we will move to the approval of the agenda. We did have one item that was added since the agenda was first published, and that was correspondence from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority regarding item 10.1. So I'd be asking for approval of the agenda to include that new piece of evidence. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Waters and Councillor Fowler, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you so much. Now we'll go to disclosures of interest. Is there any disclosures of conflict or pecuniary interest on tonight's agenda? Councillor Eisens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have submitted a statement of a disclosure of pecuniary interest on item C1, the staff report regarding the roundabout at 25th Side Road and Big Bay Point.
Thank you. Did you just want to state the general nature?
Oh, yes, of course. I have family that owns one corner of that intersection, so there will be land acquisition happening to further this project.
Thank you for that, Councillor Eisens. It's duly noted. And if you could just ask you when we get to that item, if it is pulled, if you could just turn your camera off during that item, it would be much appreciated. Next is item 5, presentations and petitions. And we're very fortunate to have with us tonight Dan Taylor, our economic development catalyst. And it is, besides being Police Week and National Nurses Week, it is also Economic Development Week. So we were here to get a presentation this evening from Mr. Taylor and bring us an update on our economic development activities. Mr. Taylor, whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. You can hear me and see me okay? We're good? Wonderful, yeah. So it's been a while. We thought we would bring an update. There's been a lot going on, as we know, in the world and the overall economy. So we wanted to bring council up to date as to our activities. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing locally. We want to feature some accomplishments over the last several months plus, and highlight a few other activities that we think are worthy of council and the community's attention. Next slide, please. Today, actually, we launched really, I guess, what would be called a buy local campaign with the Innisfil Journal. where we are promoting and supporting local businesses. I think it's about 45 businesses are in the program, and really it's our effort to do whatever we can to support local businesses. A few other activities, folks may be aware of Digital Main Street and Shop Here. It's a program that we participated in. It's a provincial, possibly even national program. And we are working with local businesses. We think the uptake could be stronger. So we're gonna dive a little deeper and see how we can get more involved, get more of our businesses involved in the program. I think everybody's familiar with Nottawa-Saga Futures, and they have something called a Business Excellence Center. So I think our department is a little guilty of promoting our shiny objects, and we are going to talk about DMZ, for example, as one of our shiny objects, but we don't always sort of talk about some bread and butter and some fundamental things. So we thought we'd just shine a light on that. So that's a program that we support. So we provide some financial contribution, and in fact are helping them a little bit with their market position and reach stronger into our community, where companies might need business advice, other business supports, etc. So that is available to businesses within our community, and we're a good partner with Nottawa-Saga Futures. Just wanted to bring council up to date on that, and if we could go to the next slide. I think everybody is familiar with What's for Dinner Tonight, which is a project that we did probably about a year ago that helped 30 or so restaurants and a delivery service go from 300 deliveries a week to 1,500 in its peak. And then after we provided support, they sort of leveled out at a great number of around 1,100 per week. We were approached a few months back about a project called Innisfil, which was to promote local restaurant purchases, etc. So we had just a minor contribution on our end, a few $1,000s, and it gave some discounts off delivery, and that worked really well. So again, supporting local business wherever we can. There's another group called South Simcoe Startup that really is plugged into the local entrepreneurial community. We provide them support, and then they in turn, it's a form of leverage for us, go and work with local startups and help them out wherever they can, which is great. With respect to diversity and equity, we partnered with Sandbox, and we've been involved in female entrepreneurship and business support for quite a few years. And we participated in a program called Accelerate Her, which is all about helping female entrepreneurs. Just again, some simple updates for council. If we could go to the next slide. So the economy is in a funny situation right now, not like in an odd situation where, we have face-to-face businesses like the service industry, restaurants, hair salons, etc., that are just being devastated. And we have other parts of the economy that are growing. So we're quite aware of that, and we're doing everything we can to help those businesses that are growing grow, and those that are being adversely affected to do whatever we can. This is a good news story. About a year ago, in fact, we are going to have a 1-year celebration in a few weeks from now to celebrate DMZ Innisfil. And DMZ Innisfil is I should really take a step back. Our goal and our association with DMZ Innisfil is intended to build an economic ecosystem that did not exist in Innisfil before. So the ecosystem that we are building is a tech software startup ecosystem. It's a very bold ambition that council and senior admin have been very supportive towards. And I'm delighted to say that from all accounts, it's highly successful. We have our capacity is 25 startups per year, and we are at 20 right now. They've created approximately 30 local jobs. We've helped some founders move to the community. Our startups have raised about $2 million and probably on track to raise another $2 million in the not so distant future. But I think what's more important is we are showcasing Innisfil again as an innovative community that can do big, bold, great things, and we're succeeding at it. And there's a long way to go, but I think all of us can be proud of our accomplishments. I'd like to give a nod to Yelmer and Kate specifically, and Dean, quite frankly, and the others on our team who've just done an incredible job. I mean, this is, I don't want to say it's a minor miracle, but it's just good strategy, hard work, resources have really paid off. And I think we're just at the beginning. So I think council can be happy that their focus in this area is going very well. We have a significant grant application that council gave us the go-ahead about a year ago to put forward that got delayed by COVID. We believe we're in good stead. I mean, there's no guarantees, but hopefully over the next couple of months, we'll find out whether or not there's funding for that. That could be a 3 to 5 year window, which would really help augment our efforts. 2 exciting extensions of DMC Innisfil. Because we are learning so much about how to help businesses grow, we are now going to create a DMZ local, for lack of a better term. If this was an investment attraction initiative, now we're going to take those same skills and put them into the community and target. We've got about 20 or 30 companies that we're targeting, and we're hoping to get a half a dozen or so in the program where we can help them maybe double or more their business over the next 12, 24, 36 months. So I think it's really great. We built this foundation, we've got some insight, and now we can go deeper and help some existing businesses in our community. And I think council has heard us talk about GovTech before. At the moment, what we call ourselves is sector agnostic. So we don't focus on any particular sector. We are going to add a sector of government technology. With the hackathon about a year ago, we were quite successful at that. And we think there's a demand, and it will position Innisfil uniquely that way. On to the next slide, please. I'm really pleased to announce an evolution of a concept that we've talked about for a while, and we've started. You've heard us talk about, and I think council's aware of a concierge service. So we are taking that idea to the next level. We finished phase 1. We've just wrapped up an RFP for phase 2, 3, and 4, which will be completed this year. And we're calling it Investor Service Excellence Program. So this is strategic and holistic, meaning we are working with the entire organization, planning in particular, who's done a lot of work about their processes and systems, what's working, what needs improvement. And as an organization with a theme of one town, one team, and cross-functionality, we are looking at both from internally as an organization and externally, what does the market look for on how to create an incredible experience when one comes to the town of Innisfil to invest. Our goal is that we make investing more streamlined, easier, a better experience. And our belief is if we can do that, we will process more investment. We will create a great word of mouth and an increased reputation. And we believe all those things on their own will create more investment opportunities for us. So happy to keep council posted. And if they have any questions now or later, we'd be happy to answer them. But we're quite excited about that. I think folks are familiar with a project we shared probably 18 or 24 months ago, downtown Alcona. An investment attraction. We created a 3D visualization to really take our planning policies and our economic development visions and animate them so that investors could understand what we were doing. The investment demand in Innisfil and in Alcona is extremely strong. We have a handful of files we're working on right now in various stages, from construction to conversations. So just want council to know that. The other thing that we are working on is an expanded expansion and retention program. Certainly in the light of COVID and just the environment in general, we've targeted quite a few companies where we're going to go in, have conversations with them, learn how we can serve them better, and whatever we can do to help them, we hope to do. Something happened on January 1. I'm not sure exactly what it was, whether it's COVID, local, the economy, local versus offshoring investment, but industrial investment inquiries are off the charts. We have probably a dozen plus files that are very active and very serious. I believe, but if council's not familiar with, the church property was sold recently in Innisfil Heights. A local company that develops homes called RCC bought the property. They brought an investor already called IHL, who's building a approximately 100,000 square foot facility that's a modern, almost just-in-time way of ordering home building supplies, etc. Their vision is to, and they have demand for already a handful of other folks to parcel out 8 or 9 other lots and further develop that. There's more developments on the way that we cannot share at this moment, but I just want council to know that there's an incredible amount of interest and activity. This is not unique to Innisfil, it's North American wide, it's Ontario wide, and we're a benefactor of that because of our position, the lands that we have, etc. We keep revamping and upgrading our websites to make sure we're on track. We're working with Tim Kane in the Orbit project on an Orbit website. I'll share just a little snippet in a moment, but more to come. And we've got some great marketing where we're really focused on connecting with leads and specific investors so that we can have conversations. Next slide, please. I'm cognizant of time. I'm trying to go through this as quickly as possible. Why don't I keep it at that? There's a new, this is our recommended logo for the Orbit, and we're working with the Orbit team to develop a website that is an all-in-one website where we post MZO issues, planning issues, citizen issues, marketing to fill up the site for new businesses that come there, etc. We'll go to the next site. The next slide, thank you. We've worked with planning internally to come up with a commercial space update where planning, the public, our investors can see all the investments that are happening right now. So it's a visual and a look-see. Happy to share that. Next slide, please. And I did mention that there's an incredible demand for a variety of industrial and commercial investment. And we're working hard and closely with industry and with our internal stakeholders to make sure we can make most of those investments happen. I think council is aware, one of our biggest challenges still, and I know Leo Deloitte, our director of growth, is working on this, is servicing. So it is a bit of a limiting factor, although at the moment, we have investors that are open and willing to work with us on interim solutions. And so we're fortunate that it's a partial barrier, but it's not a total barrier. Last slide, please. We just wanted to thank council for their attention. We wanted to bring them up to date, and we're pleased to share that, you know, in this COVID environment, while we do recognize and appreciate there are some difficult challenges, there's a lot of good news happening in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Questions, comments? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Worship. Thanks very much for the update, Dan. Appreciate that. I'm kind of curious, the one item you mentioned, the RCC project. Could you give a few more details the company does? And is there any relationship to the opportunity that the orbit presents in terms of building prefab homes or condo parts for the orbit?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I'm gonna take one step back and then go a step in, and I'm not sure how much I can actually answer your question. One of the things that we're looking at is creating a vision for what our Innisfil Heights can look like, and connecting that to the growth in residential and how our employment lands and our residential growth tie together, specifically with respect to IHL. I guess I would say it's premature, or we don't know enough about, or there haven't been any discussions yet on how we might link the two. There very well may be linkages. And to your point, if there are not direct linkages there, that definitely can be an investment attraction strategy to make sure that we are attracting opportunities that tie directly into the the medium to long-term construction of the orbit. So we're not quite there yet, is the simple answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, great presentation, Dan. It's great to hear good news about employment in our town. You talked about the DMZ program and its capacity of 25 applicants. What would be the restrictions on that, and do you, as that number grows, are you looking to expand that program? Yeah.
So again, when I say the simple answer, it's just because we haven't gone deeper yet. It's not that we haven't thought about deeper. So the simple answer is our contract with DMZ is when we started a little over a year ago, they felt that they would be able to service 25 startups with the amount of resources allocated to that. I'm not sure if you're implying this, but I'll riff a little bit, for lack of a better term, if you will. Certainly our view is we would not want to have a capacity cap, meaning if there was an opportunity to put 30 or 40 or 50 or more at any one time through the program, how could we do that? So we at the moment, it's on our B priority list, but we are looking at alternative models for financing, increased financial resources coming to the program through possibly FedDev. That would be a big one. Sponsorship, participants funding the program. So I think what you're saying, I'm going to say I'm with you. We do not want to have a cap on our capacity. There may be other arrangements that we make with Ryerson and or other service providers. So I think there's a lot of options out there, and they're on our radar, and we've been, let's say, the toes in the water at the moment. And I mean, other than FedDev, if FedDev comes through, it's more than our whole body would be in the water, because it's a significant grant ask, and it would allow us to kind of leapfrog a lot more towards possibly doubling our capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I had Councillor Sadi next.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you again, Dan, for the presentation. And I like the one where you're with the website that will provide informative information to our community on the orbit. And I think that's a good move, because it's about the public always being informed, especially on a big project like that. what's happening, the planning, and if they have questions and concerns. And I wanted to focus on a couple questions and just about sort of the you've looked at the bigger picture, and in the your reports for council, I noticed that on the one for the Yonge Street, you've mentioned about the setting up a community co-working a pilot for, and this is co-working space. And I think that will be of great interest to residents, although many residents are working from home. If they have families, you don't have a room that you can work on a computer quietly, speak with maybe clients to build your business, you need that space. And I think that that's going to go a long way to helping residents in our community build their home-based businesses and the others that are not able to even operate out of storefronts right now. The other one was, I like the idea in your, in the funding program where you were speaking about helping businesses, local businesses build their business that are impacted through the use of the internet. So they can't provide a business now, and assisting them to understand how they can build that up. And you did mention about, you know, there's that catchment area that we're all aware of and so conscious that they're hurting the most. The hairdressers, the artists, the teachers, the music teachers that teach in their home that can't do it, tattoo artists, all of those, they haven't been able to work for a year. And I don't know how, whether there's even any assist. I don't know how even online can help them. And there seems to be that catchment area that really needs some help. Don't have the magic answer. I don't know that anybody does, but I think just that we're aware of it and anything that we can do to help and support.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to that at all, Dan, or?
Sure. I mean, so again, we're on the same page, meaning we have awareness. As we know, there are, provincial and federal programs to provide some assistance. And we are making a conscientious effort to reach farther and deeper, like as part of our work, to make sure that if there are companies that we think we can help, that need help, that aren't getting the help that they need, we will do whatever we can to help them. I mean, it is a difficult situation. It's such a strange environment, but we want to help people that either we find and or reach out to us that need help. We'll do everything that we can. A big part of economic development is, the simple term is retention and expansion. Some of the answers are not easy in this time. I did mention some resources that we partner with, and some other resources that we have, and anything we can do to help folks, absolutely we want to do. I mean, it's, I don't want to sound too gleeful about all the great opportunities, because it's this dichotomy of the great investment that's happening and some great things happening, and other people that are almost helpless because of the environment. So it's we're cognizant of both, and anything we can do to help, we want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Deputy Mayor Davidson, did I see your card? Oh, no, sorry. Was there another person that had their card up? Or am I seeing yellow out of the corner of my eyes? Okay, thank you very much. A couple of takeaways that I have was, one of them is, I love how, like, it's not reinventing the wheel. You're using the infrastructure that's on the ground, and like, how can we make that better? That is what One Town, One Team is all about, is creating that support, especially for things like when you mentioned Innisful. So that's a stay-at-home mom who came up with an idea to try to bring the community together. And you said, how can we help? And, just kind of here, step on me and I'll raise you up a bit. So that's awesome. And then the DMZ is something that, you know, we can all be so proud of. Would you remind me again, other DMZs, what cities they're in around the globe?
Yes, New York, Toronto, Amman, Dubai, and Innisfil. We're in good company.
If that's not punching above our weight, I don't know what is. So well done. And as far as the servicing out to the 400, Councillor Van Berkel will contest how long that's been an issue here. However, because of the construction the county is doing on County Road 21, and at the same time, because the MTO is going to be redoing the bridge at the 400, although the good news is we can piggyback with them and make it much more reasonable. The bad news is we live by their time schedule as opposed to our own. But it's pipes are going in the ground, and that's something that first time I've been able to say that in 25 years. So that's a good news story. So with that, I'll just make sure there's no other questions. And seeing none, I would ask for a mover and a seconder that the economic development update be received with thanks. And that'll be Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, after delegations, is the County Council, Municipal Associations, Conservation Authorities, and Emergency Operations Center. Now, because I almost forgot the Emergency Operations Center at the last meeting, we'll go to them first. And Mr. Keogh is with us this evening to tell us what the EOC is. And just for those of you who may not be aware, so starting in March of 2020, the town of Innisfil declared a local state of emergency. And when that happens, under the Emergency Management and Protection of Act, I forgot the acronym, but we set up an Emergency Operations Center. And normally that happens, you know, if there's a train derailment or a major ice storm, and it starts and ends in a matter of days or weeks. But with COVID, it's been over a year. But the EOC does meet weekly to adjust and pivot and creates an opportunity for us to provide help to the community. So we have asked if our emergency communications officer will come to every council meeting and just give an update of what the EOC has been working on, just so everybody's on the same page. Mr. Keogh.
Thank you, Your Worship, for that introduction. My apologies. Sometimes it doesn't matter how much practice you have, it takes so long just to find the button right. Thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Davidson, members of council, and to the public. Pleased to bring you this update on behalf of the EOC and the 110-1 team. From the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, we were informed that locally we have seen a decrease in cases, including a decrease in hospitalizations, but that said, cases are still quite high, unfortunately. 18 to 34-year-olds continue to have the highest new infection rates in our region. Last week, the province opened up vaccination eligibility to essential workers, that is those who are frontline and unable to work remotely. Phase 2 of the essential worker rollout started this week, which includes transportation workers, electricity workers, and water and wastewater workers. So great news for us. The province is moving to a trust model for eligibility, not requiring an employee letter. Health Canada has approved the Pfizer vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds. The SMDHU has created a standby list as well for those who haven't received the first dose to help provide options for those having difficulty getting appointments. As we're probably all aware, as recently as yesterday, the province announced that they will suspend provision of the AstraZeneca vaccine for the first dose out of an abundance of caution, and we're still waiting for more information from the province on that piece. Vaccine eligibility is also expanding to more age groups, with those 40 and up eligible to book starting tomorrow, and those 30 and up who will be eligible to book starting next week. As for the stay-at-home order, which we are currently all living under, that expires on May 19th. Our partners at the SMDHU are hoping to hear from the province shortly regarding whether that will be extended, whether it will end. The province also recently passed Bill 284 to allow for paid sick leave for staff, and messaging will soon be communicated to our own staff. On parks, so no doubt council and the public received some communications from us this week about our strategy well in advance of the long weekend. So some of the headlines from that news release, under the headline there, access to Innisfil Beach Park is for residents only on weekends. That's until June 27th, after which time we will switch to resident-only access for 7 days a week. Until then, non-residents can pay to access parking and the boat launch at Innisfil Beach Park on weekdays. We're also aiming to have a gate installed at Innisfil Beach Park at the entrance to make it easier to regulate access to the park. Of course, our CDSB bylaw team will be monitoring lake access points and tagging towing illegally parked cars. And 2 additional CDSB officers have been hired to work at IBP during peak times on weekends for the summer. I can't stress this enough as well, that our operations bylaw, my own team, meet every Monday to discuss the previous weekend and the week ahead. If there's anything that needs to be adjusted, needs to change, we're ready to do so quite quickly. We continue to work with staff from the SMDHU, South Simcoe Police, and our neighboring municipalities on our enforcement approaches. I believe the mayor mentioned at the top that this week is Police Week. So important to check out our social media, South Simcoe Police's social media, just to give kudos to our officers on the front lines, of course. Our customer service team is taking appointments as needed while continuing to provide virtual and digital service and communication. And lastly, the Innisfil IATIA Lab and Library continues to focus on the needs of seniors, making senior kits in the Hack Lab, which have been wildly popular, and working on launching some lendable technology soon. That's everything.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments to our emergency communications officer? Just to say that the acronym I was looking for was Emergency Management and Civil Protections Act. Okay, anyone else have, Deputy Mayor, do you have a county council update?
Yeah, I've got to say, I think it's probably the fastest county council meeting we've had in history. And there wasn't too much on the agenda this time, but I think, you know, with what's going on, staff are doing a great job at the county with COVID response and the way they're handling it in all the different departments. They're doing a fantastic job. And I think with the assistance from the province and the federal government, financial assistance, money is being spent properly. I give them kudos for all the hard work in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just add, you know, I totally agree. I think particularly the outbreak situation and the protection of infection control at the long-term care homes is certainly very well handled. I would ask everybody to keep an eye on their, if you're like me and you pay most of your bills online, you probably don't go to the mailbox very often, but in the mailbox is an envelope from Simcoe County. Don't throw it away. It has inside it a recycling bag for the recycling programs like the clothing program that's coming forward, and also a handout about the new CART program that's starting November 1st. So we're just starting to roll out the information about the new CART program starting November the 1st. So keep your eyes open for that. Anyone else? Oh, I should also say, because we're talking about economic development, the Economic Development Subcommittee met at the county, and they put on a virtual Innovation 4.0 tour for manufacturers, and our own Tempo Plastics was one of the hosts, and it was sold out, and so it was really well done. Anyone else? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the next item, which is our consent list. So we'll go through the items, and if council wants to pull any of these items, please make it known, and then we'll discuss them further on committee of the whole. So A1, special council meeting minutes dated April 21st. A2, the council meeting minutes dated April 28th. B1, the school zone traffic safety advisory committee report dated April 22nd. C1, the 25th Side Road and Big Bay Point new roundabout traffic signal request for revisions and timelines. Okay. C2, the housekeeping zoning bylaw amendments to the town comprehensive zoning bylaw 080-13. I'm going to ask for that one to be pulled just so I can ask a few questions. If somebody would pull it for me, that'd be great. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Sorry, I hit my space bar. C3, the 2021 Economic Development Funding Program. I just want to let staff know that there's a very good chance this could be the last year. This has been a four-year program, or it's renewed every year, but I really think this is probably going to be the last year. C4, the lease renewal for 8,000 Yonge Street. And then any of the staff reports. We had the Q1 operating budget. We had the procurement for the Bel-Air Creek diversion and wetland improvement. Councillor Van Berkel.
Just a comment on D2, Your Worship. I'm disappointed that the grant we weren't successful in the grant from the federal government for the natural disaster mitigation program. I was kind of figured we would get that because the province recommended it, and it would have, like, you know, alleviated a lot of flooding for 100 some odd houses in that area. So I have to express my disappointment on that.
Thank you for that, Councillor. D3 was additional funding to replace our mower. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wonder, what was the original, what's the quote for that mower? Like, we're $41,500, almost over? Did I read that right?
Ms. Bowman? We're on D3, and the councillor was asking about the overage.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Van Berkel. We have found that COVID has affected the prices of a number of the equipment that we've purchased. So that is one that has gone above what we originally thought it would cost. The good news is that based on the surplus from our previous purchases, we can cover the incremental cost, and it's within our usual tolerance in order to have the Treasurer and CAO sign off. And we're bringing it to your attention as per policy.
What was the original like estimate on that mower?
Yeah, if you just kindly give me a minute, I've just got to pull that up.
While Director Bowman is looking that up, I just had one comment about D4, which was the building permits issued. And I thought it would be on the page 2 of 2, it gives you the 2021 totals for Q1, but then it gives you the totals for the whole year for 2020. It would be nice to have like the quarter where we were in comparison, what was the first quarter in 2020, and so you could kind of compare apples to apples. Mr. Deloy?
We're quite happy to do that. This is our first comprehensive report, and we can allow a month, quarter-to-quarter comparisons so you can see where you're at. We're pretty much on track with last year, but we're expecting an increase this year.
Thank you, Mr. Deloy. Councillor Van Berkel?
I just want to say that, you know, if we compare from last year to this year, that the the building part of it's been fairly busy. You know, they haven't been sitting on their hands, even though there's COVID. We have to give them credit. You know, they've been out there, and that's a lot of permits. And I really believe what Mr. Deloitte just said, that we're going to surpass last year, hands down. So kudos to the building department.
Director Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm struggling to pull up those numbers right at my fingertips. If it's all right with the council, I'm happy to report back offline with that information.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's just a report for information because of our procurement bylaw. That's what's required in a case when there's that much of a overage. So, but absolutely, Director Bowman, if you could email Councillor Van Berkel that information, that would be very helpful. Thank you. All right. Next is E, bylaws. There were no bylaws this evening. And F1, the correspondence from the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury. Councillor Feller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was reading this and I'm not sure if we're receiving this as information or we're going to be actually moving this, because in the final paragraph, it shows a great amount of support for the process, but at the very end it says, now therefore it be resolved that council of the corporation of the town of Innisfil hereby advises the Ministry of Transportation that the town strongly supports the link and encourages the ministry to proceed with the project. The idea, I'm okay with the idea of potentially supporting this, but the fervor in it, I think it's a little too strong. I think it doesn't represent all of the public in Innisfil here. I know there's a great many people who wish to see it go through, and there's many people who don't. But this gives a false impression that we're not representing the town in the proper capacity. Is there something we can do to work with that? Like, just take out, like, I can take. We can support, but the strongly supports, it seems a little imbalanced to my ears.
Thank you. Mr. Deloitte?
Yes, certainly we're supportive of the project. This project will be good for the entire region, and that will strengthen the region. We can remove that one word. And the other thing I want to point out is that this is going through an environmental assessment, and in our support, we're also supporting following the thorough and public and environmental processes that underpin a future highway like this.
Thank you, Mr. Deloitte. And I would just add, if I could, that that's been the position of this council, but the council before as well. It was former Mayor Walkup who supported and actually went and lobbied the Ministry of Transportation at that time to try to put this back on the books, simply because of the benefit for Innisfil residents who commute to the city, and also for our neighbors to the south, Bradford, because of I don't know if anybody has been through Bradford at rush hour over Bridge Street, but I recognize Mr. Clark's comments about the downtown, but it would definitely help downtown Bradford. Right now, the businesses down there have no on-street parking at all, so there's nowhere for anybody to actually stop and park during rush hour. So I know that the Bradford BIA and the town of Bradford is strongly in support. Councillor Waters.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering when that we should pull this to have a more fulsome discussion about it, because there's something was just mentioned about the environmental report. I thought they were basing approval on this on an environmental report that was decades old. So I wouldn't mind pulling it just to have a more fulsome discussion on it, because just 2 weeks ago we decided not to, put our opinion forth on the wastewater treatment system in Newmarket. So I'm not too sure why we're doing this now when we had that discussion on another project that was in Newmarket. I would like to pull it to have a more fulsome discussion. If anyone wants to second me.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We don't need a seconder to pull it, but thank you, Councillor Waters. It's pulled. It's great. And then we go to correspondence. So there's 5 pieces of correspondence. Is there anything anyone would like to pull? I just wanted to highlight the World Maternal Mental Health Day, and Tiffany Smith joined me on a Mayor's Minute and on May the 5th. And we did do a video on that. Seeing none, we'll move forward then with the consent list continued. So we have just 2 items that were pulled. It'll be F1 and also the zoning bylaw, which was
C2.
C2. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. So the recommendation is there before you. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Arsati, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, now a motion to resolve into committee of the whole, please. That would be Councillor Ices and Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. And now I have to find what my questions were. Excuse me, did anyone else have any questions while I'm looking violently for what I highlighted? Councillor Feller.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's one question I do have regarding the I'm trying to find the page for it. I believe it's page 7, item 3. The footprint area does not currently exist in the bylaw. 2.78 footprint means the floor area of a building or structure measure at a grade on a horizontal plane to the outside edge of walls or posts, or in the case of an unenclosed structure, and includes the furthest extent of a deck or a dock. So the question I have with regards to that is it just the width of the dock, or does it extend along the entire property length as a point of reference?
Who would like to take that question? Is Mr. Montgomery on the call? Or Barrett? Sorry, and I need a seconder. Sorry. Deputy Mayor Davis is a seconder. Go ahead, Mr. Montgomery.
Through your worship, I'm wondering, Nick Scared is on the call. I'm not sure I fully understand the question, or Councillor Feller, if you could reiterate it a little bit.
Okay, so we have a property on, for example, on the lakefront, and the dock extends 15 feet out. Now, does the boundary of the footprint extend the 15 feet parallel to the width, to the length of the dock from the shore, or is it just the square footage of the dock itself? Does it draw a line in the sand, for example, like the dock comes to 15 feet, does it go north and south the 15 feet, even though it's open water? Does that count as the footprint, or is it only limited to the square footage of the dock that extends out into the lake? That's because you're talking about unenclosed structures, and I'm just wanting to see, are we counting just the square footage of the unenclosed structure itself, or does that act as a point of reference?
Through your worship, it would just be limited to the dock itself, is how that's written.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So I found my highlights, and it was around the driveways for parking, which was item in the housekeeping text changes, item 2.51. Driveway means an area of land that provides vehicular access from a street or private road. So we've had the issues in the past with trailers, tractor trailers, like for signs. Really, they're signs, but they're on wheels. And so if we tell them that they need to be on a driveway, they just put down some gravel. I'm wondering does this address any of that? Mr. Montgomery or Mr. Stewart?
Your worship, I can address that question for council. This section is just clarifying when you have block cluster townhouse developments and those internal roadways. We've had some interpretation issues with internal roadways on those block cluster townhouse developments. This is just to clarify that. All parking of vehicles are permitted on a driveway. And not on landscaped open space. There are other sections of the zoning bylaw that capture that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation as is on the screen? That is carried. Next item was F1, spoke by Councillor Waters. And do you have a seconder, Councillor Waters, or did you want someone else to move it and second it, or?
I'll ask if anyone wants to second it. There we go.
There you go, Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. I thought I would pull this because, as I mentioned earlier, we had a discussion 2 weeks ago on the wastewater treatment facilities in Newmarket, and several councillors suggested that, why are we commenting on this when it's not in our jurisdiction? And the same thing, that same thing could happen to us if we want to have a wastewater facility here. We would, Newmarket could be saying, well, we don't think they should be doing that. So this kind of falls under the same category. So that was my one point. The other point is that if I could ask staff whether or not this is going to be going through a full up-to-date environmental assessment review, or whether or not they're going to be using one that was done 20 years ago. So if I could ask that question before I go on any further, that would be helpful.
Sure. Director Deloy.
I can answer the first question. There is some similarities in the sense that this major 400 series and bypass projects are good for a healthy local economy. The Metrolinx line, the GO stations, all these highway projects are good for the region and therefore good for Innisfil. So I think there's one point. The other point, it's a subtlety, is Innisfil is going to be needing a bypass at some point in the not too distant future in an area to the south. And so I think we just want to work with our neighbors and support them. And we hope that they'll support us and when we come forward with our bypass plans. And the environmental assessment question, I don't have an answer, but we could do a memo to council to answer that fully. I'm not sure if anyone of my colleagues knows.
I don't see hands up, so
Mr. Kane is
there we go.
Yes, my hand's up, but I don't have an answer as well. So just to clarify, I think that we could send a brief email to council as a follow-up from that question tonight, Councilor Waters. And just to clarify, the bypass that Mr. Deloy is talking about is the long-standing and depending on who he's talked to, overdue potential bypass for the village of Cookstown. So I know it's near and dear to some councillors' hearts and mayor's hearts, and certainly we haven't lost sight of that, and working cooperatively with our neighbors will only help that process.
Thank you. My question would be, is there a timeline for this? Could we defer this to the next meeting and get the answers about the environmental assessments first? Mr. Deloy.
Your worship, there is no urgent timing on that. We could bring it back with the answer, no problem.
Thank you. My understanding is that Bradford was going to redo all their EAs. And that was from Mayor Keffer, but I can, I'm happy to defer it to make sure we get a fulsome answer to that question. And just to add to, what's different about this than the York Region item. First of all, it's our neighbor that we share so many things with, water and police, and also they are part of Simcoe County, which makes it a little bit different as well. And we were asked, we've been asked to do this. We were asked to support a new high school in New Tecumseh. We used to have Innisfil residents that went to that high school before we got our own high school, but we don't anymore. But I can tell you from knocking on doors, the last election, many people, Innisfil residents, were telling me that this would cut 20 minutes off their commute daily. So they were quite in favor of it. But if there's a motion to defer, happy to entertain that and see where the vote goes.
I think a motion to defer would be preferable, just because there are still a lot of outstanding questions. Because, like, I can certainly understand the timing issue in terms of the connection between the 404 and the 400. I understand that fully because I've had to make that drive numerous times. I'm just a bit concerned of the agricultural lands, which are going to be destroyed, the wetlands, which are going to be destroyed during this process. I just can't imagine why they couldn't have chose a link further south, that we weren't going into the Holland Marsh, which is such a prime agricultural area. So I would like to defer it until we get some of those further answers to make an educated decision on that. And then also, I think to give other groups an opportunity to maybe better inform us in terms of what some of the issues might be with the bypass. So I certainly understand the need for it in terms of timing and all that kind of stuff. I just would like a bit more information on the environmental concerns that are at hand.
Thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind just not moving that right now, just because once the motion to defer is on the table, then there's no other discussion. And I, right. Councillor Arsetti.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I was just wondering about with this correspondence. Certainly from a perspective of mobility. And as you mentioned, many of our residents in Innisfil are commuters and having to get to the city, East End and West End. So the 400, isn't always the answer to get down to the 400, 401, 407, and 404 is essential, and the backup that's on the highway. I know with my husband, when he was traveling to the city, would use the 404, and it does cut time. It would make a difference to many residents that have to drive as well. But I was interested in the environmental as well, because although it was saying that we approved this, certainly like the idea of the highway and coming in, but I just like a little bit more information on the environmental. And it did say that there would be, I'm looking at this, the Ministry of Transportation would carry out a public consultation program. Would that come as far as Innisfil for public consultation? Or is that public consultation for Bradford itself? How far does that go?
I would imagine it would be centered around Bradford and East Gwillimbury, the two communities that it actually intersects. But Mr. Deloitte, did you?
Yeah, I've seen some material where they're doing virtual presentations, so I don't see any reason while we're asking about the environmental, just to inquire about the extent of the public involvement.
Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, this was in the news just recently as well, too. And as it's identified, this is a little bit different than any of the other things we were looking at. If we're looking for support for the Cookstown East-West link as well, it would be in our best interest to probably support our neighbor to the south. I know the highway that's in the north end of Toronto is going to be subject to a new EA for federally. but this actual link was not put on the federal list as well, and they're going to use the existing EA that the province has done in the past. So, you know, deferring it just to get that other information officially from staff is fine, but I think this may be one that we'd like to support our neighbors to the south, because it will be something that may help us to get rid of the congestion in the Cookstown area in the future as well too. So if that helps council, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would agree with Councillor Nichols on that. I think we're going to find out all of these things that we need to know anyway before this highway is going to get started through the process, through the public, consultations. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of it, but I really feel that maybe we should support our neighbor to the south on this, because simply as you pointed out, we have a shared fire service, shared police, water, and we need them as well when we need our bypass in the Cookstown area.
So there is a link to bradfordbypass.ca that all of the studies and everything are on. And then the only other thing I'd like to point out, because I was around when they did the EA the first time, but much of that land is already acquired. So there is the land where it's going to go down River Road and in that area in East Gwillimbury. They've acquired that land quite a few years ago. So it was very far along before all of a sudden it was pencils down. It was the farthest along project anywhere in our area. The Cookstown bypass only got to the study design. It didn't get to the EA process. The EA wasn't even started yet, whereas this one had gone through a whole EA that was finished. But point taken, EAs have changed a lot since then. So, so we have had good discussion. So I'm looking to see if there is appetite to defer, or council wants to vote on it. Councillor Orsatti?
So then just clarification before I vote. I'm certainly in favor of the project because I feel that it's beneficial to the residents of Innisfil, many residents that have to travel to work. I just wanted more information on the environmental. So if that environmental information is available to our residents, to us in council, then I'm happy to vote.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. According to Mr. Deloitte, there is no major rush on this. And as much as I can see the benefits of the project, before I speak for the residents, I would prefer to have all the factual information before me. I know where I'm leaning, but I want to make sure that all my T's are crossed and my I's are dotted before I commit to anything. That's just my perspective on it. Thank you.
Okay. So who's going to play the card? Is there a motion to defer? Are we voting? Councillor Waters?
I'll make the motion to defer.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Fowler. Okay, so we now have a motion to defer, and I'm going to call the vote. Is everybody prepared? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll vote yes. So that's 5. So that's carried. Next is a RISE recommendation. So we will return back to formal council. And a mover, please. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. And consideration to adopt the recommendations from the committee of the whole this evening. Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is passed. And then we had the item. Deputy Clerk, where was the LSRCA correspondence that we added? Did we deal with that yet?
Yes, Your Worship. It was on the, it was an added item under correspondence for information that was received.
Okay, thank you for that. Great. All right, next is notice of which notice has been given by Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately tonight, since what's been brought forward in camera, and unfortunately, the counselor for this ward, it was unavailable for the education process and legal information that was received in camera. So at this point, I would like to defer this motion.
Do you have a seconder for deferral? Councillor Van Berkel? Questions or comments from members of council? Can I ask staff, planning staff or director or manager, what are the, if you just, what you think of, what's your recommendation going forward?
Yeah, certainly through you, Mayor. We've looked through the motion, and what the motion is requesting is that the official plan amendment that came in with the original application be considered, and through the suggestion by the deputy mayor that consideration be deferred to a future date. We planning staff have concerns. The original OPA is that came in with the original application doesn't reflect what is expressed here in the motion. It would actually allow for a golf course use across the site, and subject to sort of parameters that don't reflect a reduced golf course or that look to protecting the natural environment features through appropriate designations. So the draft official plan that came in originally with the application has we have concerns with it in terms of there being inconsistencies and errors within the official plan, as well as non-conformity with the county official plan and provincial policy framework, within which decisions by council need to conform and be consistent with. So there is, however, an opportunity, given that a decision was made on this OPA and zoning bylaw amendments. So there is an opportunity that with that now being that decision made and that appeal withdrawn, that the applicant can move forward with a revised official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment that reflect this reduced golf course with the appropriate updated studies and environmental mapping that allows staff to consider under the normal course of the Planning Act and circulate that and take it through the regular course, a regular process under the Planning Act, including public consultation on that, whatever that revised application represents. So happy to take questions on that.
Questions for Manager of Planning, Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think a lot of the site plan specific, the specifics that we're requesting as we move forward, that can be done at the site plan time, where we're reducing this, where they are reducing the size of the golf course, but they're planning on doing, that can be done later in the site plan agreement. So that's why I'm deferring it. The information we got tonight was quite educational.
So Mr. Deloitte, or did you want to respond to the Deputy Mayor's assumption?
Certainly. So through the site plan control process would follow after an official plan and a zoning bylaw amendment are in place. And that official plan and zoning bylaw amendment has been decided on and doesn't and reflects, as it stands, reflects the original application and not whatever this revised application is. And the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment would need to be tailored around in order to establish any form of consistency and conformity with our upper levels of provincial and county policy. Would need to protect the natural heritage or key natural heritage feature designations, which currently that official plan amendment would not do. So there isn't really a benefit to deferral because the sort of that decision has been made and that OPA and the rezoning have been refused. So there's an opportunity though that a new application is made that reflects this revised golf course, and then staff can take that through the appropriate process and review in terms of that conformity exercise that decisions of council need to conform to.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Yeah, my reason for deferral is that the councillor is not here tonight to represent her constituents. I had spoken to her previously, and she was, at what I understood, in favor because she had seconded the motion. So my reason for deferral is the councillor who represents the constituents is not here.
Deputy Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. And I appreciate the Deputy Mayor's consideration for Councillor Payne, as it is in her ward and she's not here. The concern that I have, whether she's
Excuse me, Your Worship,
here-
point of order. There's to be no discussion once a deferral is on the table, I understand.
No, the order is that the discussion will be about the deferral. So
Okay, so let's stick to the deferral.
not about
only.
the motion, but the debate can be about the deferral.
Strictly, let's keep to that.
Thank you. If I
Go
may
ahead.
try.
Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, I will try again then. So this notice of motion circumvents the proper normal process in accordance with the council decision on this application. And by not approving this motion, then Next 9 has the opportunity to prepare new or revised applications to the planning staff at the town, who can review it, bring it back to council, and the applicable authorities be involved and allow the proper process for public consultation at that time.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Nicol.
Your Worship, staying just on the deferral point here, unless I'm missing something procedurally, the notice of motion was brought forward properly. The seconder is nothing until tonight, so there is no seconder that's missing because it hasn't been put on the table yet. So I don't know how the Councillor Payne couldn't have been the seconder because it didn't happen this evening. So I think there's procedurally a mistake there. Maybe legal staff can clarify, but I don't know how deferring this because the seconder is not available is appropriate.
Councillor Van Berkel's the seconder of this motion.
So then I don't understand why we're talking about that we need to defer it because the seconder, Deputy Mayor said the seconder was Councillor Payne. But you can't second a notice of motion. So I'm confused by the logic there.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel.
Your Worship, I seconded to bring this on the table so we could discuss it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
I'd like to table this discussion, please.
So you're calling the question?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to defer that is moved by Councillor Davidson and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. Those in favor of deferring the motion? Those opposed? Oh. Okay, I'm going to do it by show of hands. How's that? So those in favor of deferring this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed to deferring the motion? That's a tie, so that is defeated. So we're back to the original motion. Any more questions or comments on the original motion?
Ask for it to be tabled.
So I'm not sure what that means.
You know what? Let's just withdraw the motion for now.
So no, the motion's on the table and it's duly moved and seconded. And we're going to call the vote on the motion. So all those in favor of the motion? Three. Those opposed to the motion? One, two, three, four, five. That is defeated. Thank you. We'll move on to item announcements. Who has announcements for this evening? Councillor Nicol.
Hey, we're sorry to find my notes here again. I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that obviously we've all been under some, we've had to pivot during the pandemic here. And I was happy to witness today during homeschool time that Wyatt's teacher at Killarney Beach School during the grade 5 time actually had the grade 5s watch a video of the mayor being interviewed about the orbit. Afterward, there was a great discussion by all the grade 5s, and they actually had to do searching to get who the mayor was, who the premier was, and who was the prime minister, and also some fun facts about Innisfil. So it was the highlight of my day was grade 5 civic learning. So congratulations. And Wyatt said, I know that, it's Lynn. Doesn't everybody know her? So.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I have to tell you, I was in I had a grade 3-4 class at St. Francis of Assisi, all write letters, passionate letters, explaining why the smoking and vaping age should be raised to 22. And they were like pages long, and I was on with them for about an hour. And I got to tell you, if that's an example of the youth of the adults of tomorrow, we're in good shape, because they were pretty darn clever kids. But thank you for that. Other announcements? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I was a little bit late to the closed session meeting as I was moving farm equipment around. So I just wanted to remind those driving the roads to have a little bit more patience as farmers are working hard to get the spring planting done. It looks like a great stretch of weather, and everybody can enjoy that, but there's also lots of work being done too. So I thought I would just remind people of that. Thank you.
A great reminder, sir, and something that people need to get used to, especially those who move up here from the south, and don't bite the hand that feeds you. So stay behind them. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I think just to remind our residents that there's a great opportunity when you're trying to find a gift for someone, and this came to light during Mother's Day, where we have the pandemic and the difficulty that no matter what you're looking for, always check out the Innisfil Library and the Idea Shop, because they have great gifts, Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays. You can hand, the designs that they have, everything from kitchen to wearable items. It's really interesting, and it's a great way to support our local libraries. And the idea that you're giving someone that you had custom made in Innisfil with the tag on it, I think is a great opportunity.
Thank you for that. Any other announcements this evening? Thank you. I just had a couple. So first, I wanted to remind everybody, if you haven't already, fill out your census. It's really important. It takes only a few minutes if you're lucky enough to get the short one. And it's so important, because who gets the schools, who gets the hospitals, all of that is decided by the census. So we need to make sure that we fill that out and that we get our fair share. And speaking of fair share, I would also encourage everybody who is eligible to please sign up for vaccines. The Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, I think, made a mistake. Now they put the percentage of vaccination of every municipality in Simcoe Muskoka, and we are not at the top. In fact, we're probably closer to the bottom than the top. So I want everybody who can get one to please go out and get a vaccine. I want to beat Ramera. I think they're almost 50%, and we're at like 34. So let's go Innisfil. Councillor Nicol.
Sorry, Worship, sorry to interrupt on that as well too, but we have the EOC tomorrow at 11 o'clock. As soon as I'm done that, I'm actually racing to Barrie to get my shot. So I'm in line, so I'll be there.
Good job. All right, any other announcements for the good of the community? Councillor Van.
I'm in line for my second shot, so.
Great. It's great to see everybody is getting on board, and hopefully we'll get life back to whatever the new normal is going to be very soon. So with that, then we'll go to the confirming bylaw, and the confirming bylaw for tonight's meeting be adopted, moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, adjournment. Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned at 8:33. Reminder that there is a planning meeting starting at 6:30 next Wednesday, and then back to regular council the week after that. I wish everybody a lovely evening and enjoy the sun we're going to get for the next few days.